Hi, Susie Miller here to equip and inspire you to create better relationships in just 30 days or less. And for today at Live at 5, we're going to talk about when marriage is hard. I don't know about you. If you've been following me at all, you know that I've been sick, and thus I'm sitting here. I might start coughing right in the middle of this. I'm sorry if I do. But we are in the middle of a massive change in our life. My husband and I are going to sell everything, well, almost everything we own, and we are headed out to live in a tiny house trailer for the better part of next year. So there's lots and lots and lots of decisions that need to be made. And over this last week, we have had a lot of time where we have been tense with each other or short with each other, and just overwhelmed with how much there is to do and how hard it has been. And so when life gets hard, usually the relationships that are most important to us or the ones that we feel the most secure in is where we bring our stress. And so my husband and I have been married for almost 34 years, and he is definitely the one who gets the best of me and the worst of me. So the best of me is really great and fun and supportive and understanding, and the worst of me is snippy and tired and demanding and frustrating. And this weekend, I think we both brought the worst of us. We had spent Sunday working on our house, our tiny house, and there were just a lot of decisions, and we couldn't figure out some things, and we kept running into dead ends and brick walls, and it was just frustrating. I wanted to push through it. He was tired. He really didn't. John likes to take time and kind of step back and think about things. So I want to give you 3 tips for when marriage gets hard. And it could be hard because you're dealing with a kid that's difficult. It could be hard because, like me, you're dealing with chronic illness. And that's a whole nother video. Or it could be hard just because the stress of life has taken its toll on you and you are finding yourself being short-tempered or a little bit less lovey-dovey with the one that you love. So that's where we were. So I want to give you 3 things. The first thing is to name it. So number 1 is you want to name what's going on. A lot of times we'd much rather avoid talking about the hard things. We'd much rather just push it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist and hope it goes away. But honestly, if you do that, over time you get this huge mound in your rug and you're tripping over it. So pretending something isn't wrong or something isn't bothering you rarely, if never, works. So what I want you to do is I want you to name it. So this is kind of how that would look. For me this weekend it was, I know that you're tired, honey, and I'm feeling you're being impatient with me. Or at one point in time, I wanted to keep talking about something and get his opinion on something, and he looked at me and was like, you know what, I got nothing to give. I don't have an answer for you. And so he got really quiet. So name that it's hard. Name that you're under stress, and if you can, name what the stress is. So as I follow this story, this will kind of make you laugh, I was packing up the stuff that we're going to take to our tiny house, the few things we're going to store, and I had packed up a bunch of my art stuff and a bunch of my office stuff, and it turned out to be about 3 boxes. And in his very practical way, the hub said to me, that's a lot that you're thinking about taking. I'm not sure that's going to all fit. And I kind of was a little bit defensive, and I said, hey, I'm sorry, I just saw Tina Marie Griffin share my video. Thanks. Sorry about that, folks. And so I got snippy and was like, you know what, I'm doing the best I can. I really am. And so that was an earlier in the day conversation. A couple hours later, I was packing up pictures, family pictures. And one of the things that happened was I'm putting them in a box, and John's like, why are you packing up pictures? There's no room on the wall for pictures. And I, of course, was like, yes, there is. There's rooms on the wall for pictures. And he said, well, maybe 1. And in my snippy voice, I said, well, maybe 7. And our son, who's staying with us for a little bit, he's a 26-year-old recovering from surgery, so he's here. He just started cracking up because you could hear the snippiness in our voice, and he knows us well enough to know that we are good friends and we do get along. And so I looked over at him and I was like, well, there's this wall, there's that wall, there's, we could hang it on the bedroom wall, and he got really quiet. Now, this is going to lead me to my second point, which is, so name what's going on. The second is for ask for what you need. So in that moment, he got really quiet and he stopped talking to me. And I looked at him and I was like, so are you done? And he's like, I don't have anything left to say. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But in his silence, I felt very ignored. Now, all of us bump into our story, and when we get stressed, some of the things that we're a little more understanding about usually go by the wayside. So I know that John is not ignoring me, but man, that silence has been something we fought about a lot in our marriage and wrestled through and handle a little better or a lot better now. But yesterday I did not handle it well. I looked at him and I was like, so I feel like you're ignoring me. And he goes, I have nothing to say. And I said to him, it would help me. I'm going to ask for what I need here. It would help me if you would say, I don't have any more to say. or I'm done with this conversation, or I'm too tired to talk about this anymore, can we just table it? Any of those kind of statements would have been engaging for me, and I would have felt like, okay, the conversation can be put at rest and he's not ignoring me. Well, he didn't do that. I was frustrated. I walked upstairs loudly, kind of took a deep breath, came back down a few minutes later and said, you know, those statements, which I just shared with you, if you could have said those, I would have felt like you were engaged with me versus ignoring me. So the second step when things get hard, so you want to name it. The second step is you want to ask for what you need. You may need time and space, which is what he needed. You may need to have some engagement that lets you know where you are or where your spouse is. That's really important. If you can ask for what you need, whether it's time, space, acknowledgement, a listening ear, all the different things that you might need, honestly, our spouses don't read our minds. And I know we want them to, but they don't. So we have to ask for what we need. So name what's going on, ask for what you need. And number 3 is give grace. And grace is just a very, very pervasive kind of culture that we try to have in our home. Grace is believing the best of the other person. Grace is assuming that they don't mean it in the worst way we might want to take it, or assuming that there's a better reason. It's a benefit of the doubt kind of posture that we have towards the person that we love. So giving grace is so important. A lot of times we kind of want to get on defensive and we want to, make our point, and we forget that this is the person that we love. This is the person who isn't intentionally hurting us. This is just a person who's struggling like we are. And so grace says, I believe in you, I believe the best of you, and this will pass. And so how that looked yesterday for me was after I came back down and we talked for a few minutes, and a little bit of time went by, I tucked myself up under John's arm, which I tend to do, and I just said, can we be friends? And he put his arms around me and he said, I'm sorry for being short-tempered. I'm really stressed. I know you're really stressed. And so let's just table this. And of course we're friends. And that's just a place where we have a language where we know it's just time to put aside the tension and go into that place of grace. Grace covers a multitude of problems. It doesn't mean you ignore them. It just means you give the benefit and the time and the space for them to work themselves out. So honestly, guys, real talk about marriage. It can be hard. Marriage can be wonderful and fun and exciting, but it can also be hard, and not just hard in the big moments, but hard in the little things. This was a little snippy thing we had with each other that came from something that was stressful in our lives. So talking about it, name what's going on, ask for what you need, and give grace. Those are 3 steps that will always help when marriage gets hard. Thanks for joining me. Join me next Monday live at 5 Eastern, and I'll see you then. Thanks. Oh, one more thing. If you want more tips about how to have great communication with your spouse or your friend or your teen or your business coworker, pop over to susiemiller.com, and on the front page there is a sign up for 10 days to effective communication with everyone, every time. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.